Rishi Sunak has an obligation to have a cabinet reshuffle as soon as possible, particularly since Ben Wallace's announcement that he wishes to retire. And I think if he's to hope at all for any sort of success at the next election, and I think, quietly I should take him to one side and whisper in his ear that there is no hope. The only hope is about whether or not he can salvage the Conservative Party to run at a future general election, because at the moment he is heading towards a complete implosion, something that could be significantly worse than the landslide that brought Tony Blair to power. So one way of dealing with this would be to be very radical. And there are various ways in which he could do this. Number one would be to punish Jeremy Hunt, not for failing in his job, but for not really succeeding, for not doing anything of significance. Of course, Jeremy Hunt's power was that he was not Kwasi Kwarteng. Kwasi Kwarteng, one of the brightest people in the Conservative Party. There is another person who I think is exceptionally bright in the Conservative Party, and I've occasionally mentioned him, but I'm going to mention him again, Michael Gove. These two bright sparks in the Conservative Party. Kwasi Kwarteng almost broke the Conservative Party with his brief tenure and his prodigious package under the guidance of the hand-wafting patience or impatience of Liz Truss. All those hand jobs that she'd been practicing and with so little purpose, edging us into financial chaos. But as I say, if Rishi Sunak doesn't wish to get rid of the leaden weight that is Jeremy Hunt and replace him with someone, let's say, like Michael Gove, then he should look at the next big beasts in line, and those really are people like Suella Braverman. If he were to get rid of Suella Braverman and completely change the direction of the small boats agendum, then he could easily change the fortunes of the Conservative Party, because then the people who have constantly been contacting me over the last month, sometimes by phone, sometimes in person, sometimes on the street, often by email, saying, well, they are committed Conservative voters and they have decided they will not vote at the next election. They can't bring themselves to vote for Labour. They don't think it's of value to vote for the Liberals. So they will simply not turn up. And I understand that position. And their reason is that they think that the Conservative Party has become brutal and sadistic was the term one of them used. Attacking the vulnerable, deflecting and distracting from the chaos which has emerged. Now, most of the people who I've spoken to in that group would claim also to be Brexiteers. I'm not. But one of them said they saw me as a sane voice. I don't know why, because I am at heart a Remainer, and not a Remoaner. I'm very happy to accept the Brexit we've got, but I think that we should have done something about it. I think Mrs. May was a twit, but I've always thought Mrs. May was a twit, and she was responsible for destroying the Home Office, and Suella Braverman is doing little more than adding a postscript. Suella Braverman is certainly not creative in the Home Office. All that goes down to Theresa May, and when she wasn't running through a cornfield, she was weeping in the Home Office over paperwork and creating more. The Windrush scandal is hers. The hostile environment is hers. The laziness is hers. And of course, it doesn't help that we've had two particularly lazy and arrogant Home Office ministers since her time. I give Amber a little bit of leeway, but no, Priti Patel and Suella Braverman. Suella Braverman is particularly to be noted as somebody who is a paper shuffler in select committees and doesn't really know what she's doing. And that sums it up. And then we look at all the catastrophes, one after the other, where she cannot even realise the appalling policies that she's trying to put into place. Incompetent, lazy, lacklustre, ineffective, and also wrong. Now, Sunak can change all that with a wave of his magic wand. Now, who he'd put in place, I have an idea, and the problem is that the current crisis in Ireland may be occupying that man rather too much. The threat of the resurgent IRA and the loss of data, the revelation of data, and the fear that produces, I think, is going to keep Chris Heaton Harris busy. But we also have to look at Northern Ireland. We have to say, well, you know, the DUP is the problem. And there has to come a point in peace where you make sacrifices, where you cross the bridge, where you ford that divide. You don't stand on one side of the divide and wish everybody else to come over. You ford, as Julie Andrews is told in The Sound of Music. Ford every stream. And you don't build a dream by standing still. So he is the only person, Chris Heaton Harris is the only person I can think of who could possibly have the foresight and the wit to reach out to people across Europe to try to find a global solution or a European solution to the migrant problem, which is only going to get worse. And it's not a specifically British problem. And that if one of our ministers can possibly have the brilliance to see that, they could possibly save the Conservative Party for the future. They might even secure a teetering majority. But if Suella Braverman remains in place, Rishi Sunak can definitely say goodbye to the next election, and he can certainly consider the possibility that he will go down into history as the person who destroyed the Conservative Party.